Hey everybody, Edo here, and this is Villainous. Now, this game came out a couple years ago and was like the hit of the internet and folks playing because it was sort of a mass market title, but with a lot of rich gameplay depth, incredible components, and just all amazingly well received. Really, the biggest complaint anyone had was the fact that it had this target tape around all the sides, making it so that you have this incredible box that's essentially damaged in a way. Since then there's been a expansion, or maybe even a couple of them, but we were at Gamescape in Santa Fe and decided to pick up a copy and play it and get into it. And it's very, very well done. First and foremost, the components are incredible. One, each player has a player pawn component that, you know, this is Queen of Hearts, Maleficent, Jafar, these are all villains, Prince John, Captain Hook, and Ursula, and these are just amazing. I actually worked at Disney on a game called Disney Hidden Worlds, and we had some potion bottles based on characters that these were reminiscent of, but the art direction, component quality, execution of all the IP in this is fantastic. Now, one of the interesting things that would explain this game a little bit is, you might not know this, but unless you have really explicit permission and a plan, generally speaking, no Disney character or world can interact with another Disney character or world, right? So like Prince John isn't allowed to hang out with Jafar or Jafar with Ursula. Now there are cases where that gets solved in a way and done, but it requires a lot of approvals and permissions and something you have to do. So like Wreck-It Ralph is an example where they had all of the princesses in it, but the theme of that movie allowed for that sort of world breaking, but generally speaking you can't do that. And so one of the really interesting things about this game is how the design team managed to incorporate and use all of these different Disney films in a way that's engaging and interesting, and where players are playing different villains without them overlapping or touching each other. So in no way do any of the worlds touch. So what is this game about? Well, you pick a villain, and this is Prince John, but all the other ones I mentioned, and you're going to have a villain board that's unique to the villain, but generally speaking is going to have your villain and then 4 spots. Some of the characters have a locked spot that needs to be unlocked, but you're going to have your little board, which you'll play on, and then you get a deck of your character cards, your cards, and then you get a deck of fate cards, which are enemies. And all of this is themed to the movie. Oh, this is the wrong card. So, like, if you're familiar with Robin Hood, Clever Design, Toby, Lady Cluck, King Richard, like these are all the good guys from the movies, and then your deck is, you know, filled with things which are either bad guys from the movie. These are the archers, Sir Hiss, or maybe something that happens, cowardice, or beautiful, lovely taxes, things that are thematically part of the villain's, you know, weapons, friends, objects, items, etc. from the movie. This is true for them all. So the execution of each world and theme is excellent. AAA execution. Really great job where I'm playing as Prince John and everything I'm doing feels like I have Prince John's stuff and his team, and then I'm defending myself versus the heroes of that tale. With that is true, like, so Jafar is about that, and everyone has their own objectives. So he's about getting power, Jafar has to get the genie and hypnotize him in the lamp, you know, Ursula, you know, has to get the Trident from King Trident, and just every, Maleficent has to put curses out, so everyone has to do their own thing. And it's really thematically driven with the cards, and it's just very nicely done. And if you're a fan of any of the films or any of the villains, you feel villainous and you're doing what they did, and you're trying to work it through, and the mechanics are really nicely done. Not simple, but one of the cool things, which I was reasonably impressed with, is there's a rules with the basic rules, and you have a reference card. But then each villain has a little booklet that's like, hey, you're Prince John. this is what's important to you and this is your objective. And then here are all the unique things about you and little advantages you can play, so you have an understanding of how your deck works and how it's going to play out. Over the course of the game, basically all you're doing is you have Prince John is this guy. Wink. You have your unit on one of 4 spots, and as you on each turn you're going to move, and when you do, you get to do the actions at the spot, which might give you power, which is sort of like, you know, the currency you spend, may allow you to move cards, play cards, discard cards, that kind of thing. And the way the cards work is you're going to be on your side either playing things that give you an advantage or allies on your side, and then fate cards are played against you at the top, and these can be like heroes that you have to defeat. The cool thing is if you play a fate card, it can cover up abilities. So you're working on solving your thing and playing your cards and dealing with whatever your own objective is, as is everybody else as you're going around the table. And I will say, over time you get familiar with the different objectives of the different villains, but generally speaking, you don't know exactly what's going on with the other players. Like, you sort of like pinpoint their objective, but it's pretty hard to like remember and know the decks and the cards of all the different players. Like, if you've played Magic and you're used to dealing with all different types of decks and like you're super up to speed on everything, sure. But just for like your general player, it's a little bit opaque what people are doing, other than you like sort of know the objective they're going and presumably how you want to stop them. The player interaction comes with these fate cards, where one of my spots here allows, or 2 of them in this case, allows me to play a fate card. So you pick an opponent and you draw 2 fate cards, and then essentially you get to pick one to place. And you're just creating a problem for them. You're putting a hero against them that they'll have to resolve, a card that like makes, you know, restricts how they can play. You might have a card, or one of the fairies versus a Maleficent removes a curse on Prince John. It takes some of the power you're trying to collect, and is basically thwarting the other players, and then their gameplay is playing against it. It's super slick. It works. It's really a pretty wonderful execution. I don't love it. There's a lot of downtime and sort of, you know, the player interaction's pretty light, but since everyone's really in their own head on their own move, you end up sort of waiting for everyone to go. And while the decisions and moves are pretty limited, especially if you're playing with more players, you know, everyone's sort of like working through all the special nuances and tricks of their hand, and it just sort of, it doesn't have the kind of pace you'd like for the game and the game speed. As players get better and are more familiar, it speeds up, of course. But I actually don't know that there's a real solve for it. I mean, I think they really wanted to execute these unique characters, the villains, and having you feel like it was that kind of experience. But I do think that it ends up feeling a little slow and a little plodding as you go. The other thing is clearly, like, when somebody's about to win, everyone just starts, you know, what somebody called it, the Munchkin problem, but like everyone starts trying to thwart that player. But I think those are quibbles. Overall, it's excellent. It's really beautiful production, excellent IP execution, and legit robust mechanics. I see why people love it. I think the expansions of just adding villains are fantastic, and you know, this is how you execute a fantastic game. So, rock solid. Villainous. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks. Bye.